last thing I want to show you is how to delete something from this list. Okay, so how do you delete something from this list? So if you want to delete things from this list, what you want to do is you want to add something over here that tells the list that it's got the deletion capability. Let's try this. So I'm going to say list recipes, comma, edit actions, colon, well, you got to spell actions correctly, actions, colon, square bracket, dot all. Okay, there are actually two things you can do to edit a list. You can reorder and you can delete. So I'm just going to be greedy and say I want them all. Okay, so now it looks like nothing actually happened. But what you can actually do now is you can go over here, you can swipe left on it. Well, you can't do it with a trackpad, so I'm going to use my finger to swipe left. And there you go. If I press delete, it's actually gone. All right, so now you can delete all you want. The other one is a little bit more tricky, the reordering method, because that requires something called an edit button. So I'm just going to add it to the toolbar actually. So I'm just going to add to the toolbar over here, maybe in between my two buttons. Edit button, open bracket, close bracket. Okay, this seems a bit weird. Feel free to reorder them if you want. Okay, but now the edit button will let me tap on it and I can delete things by tapping on this. And I can reorder my items by just dragging them using these drag handles. Okay, and when I'm done, I press done. Okay, I'm a little bit bothered by how this edit button is in the middle between two icons. So I'm just going to put it over here. And that looks much better to me. If you really want to investigate placing some of these buttons on the other side, I suggest you go online and find out a little bit more about toolbar item. That's a new view, and toolbar item group. So just experiment a little bit, go online, search for some information, but you essentially have a fully working CRUD app over here. You can create new items, you can delete items, you can edit items, and you can, of course, read all the items. So hopefully you can figure out how to extend this into something else entirely, because this list over here is very flexible. It can display images, it can display, all kinds of colors and different things like that. If you want a grid, you might need to look into something called a lazy V grid and a lazy H grid, but I'll leave you to try and figure all that out. The key thing though is if you want to extend this project, well, you need to figure out what your base item is. Is it a recipe with a title, description, and favorite? Or is it something else with a lot more fields? And how are you going to display your data on screen? Are you going to let users edit it? How are you going to let users create new items? Okay, we are almost done. There's just a couple more things that I need to clarify before we finish this off so that your project is in a good state for you to expand upon. One of the things is over here, you'll notice that my recipes are taking up a lot of space over here in my content view. What you can do is you can move all this out, and my trackpad has stopped working halfway through this video. So I'm going to choose select as text and just drag my finger on screen to select this entire recipes over here. Okay, so select over here, select all the way to the end. Actually, I don't even want the state var over here. I just want to go up to this opening square bracket and press Command X. Okay, so I'm going to type in something here that says recipe.sample data. Okay, so what this means is that it's actually a way for me to just put all this into another file so that it's a little bit easier for me to organize. So I'm going to go to recipe, and down here, I'm going to type in static var sample data equals, and I'm going to press paste. Okay, so what this does is it lets me put all the sample data into the recipe struct, and that's what we call the model. That's where all the data related stuff goes. It's trying to keep things apart. Keep content view really just for displaying content view. Okay, so now if I go back to content view, everything still works, and my code is a lot easier to see right now. One more thing. What if you want to let the user start from scratch? You don't want any sample data whatsoever. Okay, you can do that as well, except that the incantation is very slightly different. Okay, so we can go back to content view, and instead of saying state private var recipes equals to recipe.sample data, you do this. So I'm just going to comment this out by pressing Command / and I'm going to type it out again, but with a bit of a difference. I'm going to say recipes equals square bracket, recipe, open bracket, close bracket. Okay, this is just telling SwiftUI that, okay, I want to get started with a blank set of recipes. Okay, so I'm going to press plus up here, and I'm going to type in a recipe name, and this recipe name is going to be, hot chocolate avocado puff. That sounds terrible, but sure, press save. Okay, so now you can let people get started without sample data. I thought it was important to show you this. There's one last thing I should point out, and this is related to the add sheet from the last video, and which you just saw. So you can see over here that this sheet is all inside this file. Okay, it's all inside this file, whereas the other sheet, the credits view, is in a separate file. Okay, so if you want, you can also, in the name of making your content view cleaner, move your add sheet out into a separate file. Let's do that. And there's a very subtle thing you need to change. I'm going to open up my sidebar, press add, and choose a Swift file. And this one, I'm going to call it add view. And just as before, I'm going to use the shortcut by typing VIEW, press enter, and calling this add view. Okay. Now I need to go back to content view and grab everything that would have been in add view, which is somewhere over here. Okay, I'm going to press shift and select all the way down. Okay, using my keyboard this time. Shift all the way down, I think it goes to here, and press Command X. And I'm going to type in add view. Okay, so far so good. Let's go to add view, and I'm just going to select this and press Command V to paste. This is where a bunch of errors show up. Okay, there's a bunch of errors over here. And what's going on? Well, first of all, notice that we don't have show add anymore. Okay, so you can't dismiss yourself using show add. We know how to fix this. Okay, if you want, you can pause the video and try and figure out how we fix this by looking at your credits view. How do you dismiss your sheet? Well, you dismiss your sheet by essentially using your dismiss variable from the environment. So I'm going to go down here, type add environment. Not environment object, is a slightly different thing. So environment / dismiss bar dismiss. And down here, instead of saying show add equals to false, I'll just say dismiss. Okay, that's simple enough. Down here, also dismiss. So that solves one problem. All right, it takes away the problem where you can't dismiss. Another problem is that new recipe title doesn't live in this view. That's fine. We can just move it over from content view. So I'm going to go to content view, scroll up, find new recipe title, cut it, and paste it into add view. Okay, so I'm going to press Ctrl I to fix the indentation. And now it says state private bar new recipe title. Okay, and there's some errors that will resolve themselves, and we're almost done. We've fixed almost every single error. The last one is recipes.append. We need to somehow get the recipes array into here. All right, and to do this, we're going to need a binding. So let me just show you that real quick. I'm going to say over here, binding var recipes. And you can't actually do it the same way that you saw just now when we created an empty recipe, because this is a binding, and bindings are, kind of special. So I'm going to do it this way. Binding var recipes : square bracket recipe. Okay, it's almost the same, but not quite. All right. And now, whenever you create a binding, you need to do a couple of things. You need to go to a preview and tell it that, oh, right, I'm going to give you a constant array recipes dot constant, just one dot, constant, open bracket, and you're just going to give it a square bracket over here, which means I'm going to pass in a fake array that's completely empty, okay, just for the sake of the preview. Okay, and finally, go back to content view. In content view, add view is going to need something over here, and it's going to need to take in recipes, $recipes, because you need to pass in a binding so that it's able to edit it. Okay, so that's quite a lot of work. Feel free to rewind and rewatch that last bit again, but I have to point out, none of what I just showed you was strictly necessary. Okay, all we did was clean up our code. We refactored our code so that it's a lot easier to maintain. Okay, but it doesn't affect the performance or functionality of your app. One last thing to do, let's just test it out. Press plus over here, put in the title, and let's do hot chocolate soup. Press save, and there we go. It still works. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed this series of videos showing you how to make a CRUD app. And just remember, you can extend this CRUD app in many ways. Okay, you can make all kinds of different apps that just rely on this foundational principle of being able to create, read, update, and delete. There's a lot going on in terms of bindings and lists and different views and sheets and navigation, but please feel free to rewatch the video if you need to revise anything. And if you have any questions, you can let us know in the comments. Alright, thanks so much. I'll see you soon. Soon, that's me.